everybody, and welcome back. Last time, alright, so if you guys followed my journey with this black SEGA Dreamcast here, this is a custom shell that I bought online. And I'll put the link in the description because so far, I highly recommend it. It looks absolutely gorgeous. And with the exception of the missing Windows CE, so here is another SEGA Dreamcast. With the exception of the, Microsoft Windows CE badge, it looks like it was a product that was built by SEGA. So my hat is off to the folks that created the shell. I love it. I think it's absolutely fantastic. The only problem is because it is black, it shows every single, as I'm talking, and I don't know if it's like beard debris or just, I don't know, stuff falling off the ceiling. It shows every speck of dust. But, the tradition from the Master System all the way up until, the Master System to the Genesis, the 32X, Saturn, that lineage of black consoles, it just feels like having a SEGA Dreamcast in black, it just feels good. And I know that they made a black edition. SEGA made a legit one that had the SEGA Sports on it, and that's cool, but I like this better. And actually, somebody online was, that I showed them pictures of this, and they said that they bought something from the same seller a few years ago, and that they actually had the Windows CE logo on it, and I was wondering why. They sent me a picture of what they got, and it had it on there. So what I wonder is if that's a situation where maybe Microsoft sent them a cease and desist or something, whereas SEGA just doesn't give a shit. I don't know. If anybody knows, please let me know. So anyways, here is what we're going to do right now. So if you guys followed what I did last time, what I did was I put a functioning GD-ROM drive in this unit so that I could have a complete working SEGA Dreamcast in here. So I bought a broken one off of eBay, and I extracted all the guts and I stuck it in here, with the exception of I had the GD-ROM from this unit here. Now this is my personal SEGA Dreamcast, the one that was in working condition, that I did at one point installed a GDEMU in it, but I don't want that in here. I want this to be in factory condition, and I want this one to have the GDEMU in it. What I also wanted to do was I wanted to try to repair the broken GD-ROM that came with the other unit. Just not really repair, but just give it some temporary life by adjusting the potentiometer on here. But after I took this apart, I noticed that I was not the first person to do that. This is actually not in very good shape inside. So when you buy, this is sort of a buyer beware. If you're gonna buy something, like a SEGA Dreamcast, and it's like does not read discs, and you think that the person that you're buying it from hasn't tried fucking with it before, hasn't tried adjusting it, or they don't know what they're doing, maybe you think that, oh, it doesn't work, so I'm just gonna sell it. A lot of people will try to buy broken consoles and try to fix it themselves, and if they don't know what they're doing, they'll resell the broken console. That was what happened in my case. Somebody probably bought this broken, or it was theirs and they tried to fix it themselves. And the reason I know for a fact somebody's been in there is because the ribbon cable that connects the laser to the assembly unit is all crinkled up, which means that this top's been lifted and twisted, and the actual pot has been disconnected from the actual laser, which means that someone didn't know what they were doing, and sometimes there's some glue or something that's holding it in place. So someone tried to do an adjustment without actually cleaning it off and doing it properly, and they literally broke it. So is it fixable? I don't know. I may try a little bit harder to see if I can fix it, but there is actually some small amount of good news with that, and that is if you try doing the GD USB instead of the SD version, which is what I got here, it requires you to actually destroy your GD-ROM assembly. So you actually have to take parts of this. So there are some mods that require you to destroy this. So this might be worth having around if I were to do something like that in the future. And also, who knows? Maybe someone's looking to do one of those mods and they're looking for one of these that they want to break, and they don't want to break a functioning one. So just letting you know, my goal was to try to fix that, and I couldn't, or at least in a very quick and simple way. And the other thing that I wanted to do was address an issue with power. So I bought myself some resistors, and so one of the things, even though there's a couple of ways that you can deal with the power. So let me show you what I've done with my current console. So when you hit the GD-ROM out, the 12-volt rail that powers the GD-ROM is no longer used. And what that does is it creates a situation where the system draws more power than it needs, because the power supply was actually designed to have the GD-ROM there. But when you put the GDEMU in there, that 12-volt rail is no longer needed. So it can I'm reading here, it can draw up to 14 volts, which can cause your system to become hot. Now, is that dangerous? I don't know if it's actually dangerous. I've seen people install fans in their console. I've seen people do some other clever things like actually cut that rail on their power supply, which me personally, I'm not a fan of doing anything like that unless it's absolutely necessary, because I see that as destructive. Once I cut that power rail, I would have to remod it to put it back in that condition again, and I just don't want to do that. I want to be able to, if in the future I want to make this read optical discs again, I want to have that option. So I don't want to do a permanent mod unless I have no other choice. So let's take a look at, so again, this is the console that currently has the GDEMU in it, and I have been using this, so I want to be honest, I have not had any issues with, nothing major so far. So you see this right here, this is just a piece of plastic that I rigged up here that sort of forces the airflow out to the exhaust fan. So some people sell 3D printed things where you can do something similar just like this, and I'll probably put this in the black console as well. But what I'm also going to do is put some resistors to bridge some connections here on the power supply. So we'll take a look at that in a second. So what I'm going to do right now is I'll take a quick pause so you don't have to watch, and I'm going to disassemble this so that we can reassemble this in the other console. So I'm only showing this just to see that you know, this is the console that I'm going to reinstall the other disk drive in, and then take all this stuff out and put it in the other console. So in just a minute, we're going to swap consoles. Okay, so as you can see now, with the black console, the GD-ROM unit is out, and on my personal Dreamcast, you can see now I put the GD-ROM unit back in where it originally came from. So I'm going to seal this back up. Okay, my personal SEGA Dreamcast console is back in original working order. Now it's time to mod the black console, which will be the GDEMU. So just as a couple of things for anybody that is not aware, if you're going to do this mod, check the bottom of your SEGA Dreamcast. Make sure that there's a 1 right there, okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing is make sure that you have a working unit, meaning, you know, it outputs video and all that fun stuff. All right, now let me get the black unit up here. The next thing is about the GDEMU is when you buy your kit. So here's the one that I have. This is one of the clones, and there's many different versions of this, including different versions of the clones, and it really depends on who you buy it from, who the seller is. I got mine. I spent, I don't know, it was maybe $40, $35, something like that. Has a slot here for an SD card, and then there's, you know, there's some apps you can get online just to configure an SD card. Here's one that just has 2 gigs on it, because I'm going to showcase this with NFL 2K, so I just have 1 game on here. There's a little button up here for disk swapping, so I'm not really giving a tutorial on how to use the device, but one thing I think is important to know is there's very little difference between the clone and the real deal, so just be careful, buyer beware. You kind of know what you're getting, because I believe that the person that makes the legitimate ones provides firmware updates and things like that. And if you get the clone and you do a firmware update using the legitimate firmware updates, I believe that you brick the device, so it just becomes useless. The games that I played on the clone so far, I haven't had any issues. I've seen people complain about things like they play Crazy Taxi and there's no music. I personally haven't seen the problem, but you know, maybe eventually I will. I don't know. That's just sort of my introduction. The installation is, you know, you don't really need to have like a PhD to install it. So once you have your console open, when you buy your kit, you'll probably get some little footy things like this, and they don't really stick into, they're just basically free floating in some kits, and maybe some of them will actually screw in. The kit that I have, it doesn't. You can see over here, this is the part that actually goes right into the board here. The reason they call it the GDEMU is it's a GigaDisk emulator. So it literally emulates your GigaDisk ROM. You know, if you were to buy this new and you get these little pegs, you stick the pegs in there just for extra support. And then I'm just going to slide this where my GD-ROM unit used to be. And I'm just going to give myself a good little vantage point here. So it just kind of rests in there like that. There are some third-party options where people have, you know, 3D printed trays you can stick in here, which I'm going to get. And basically at this point it's installed. Then you have to sort of, then you have to prep a SD card, which I can either showcase at some other time. I'm going to slide my pre-prepped SD card in here. All right, so at this point, this should be prepped and ready to go, because like I said, I've already pre-prepped the card. I'm gonna stick the top on, and I'm gonna do a quick smoke test. The smoke test should tell me whether I installed the unit correctly, because if the unit's not making hard contact with the board, then I should have, you know, some problems. Let's see. Alright. This was happening before. Hold on one second. There we go. Alright, so that's a good sign. I think there's something wrong with the AV out port. I'll have to take a look at the pins on that. Let's see if it boots into the... Oh, it didn't. Okay, so I must have done something wrong. Let's see. So it booted into the menu, so I'm going to pop this out, pop it back in. I know that this works because I've been using it for a while. Just make sure it's nice and snug. Alright, I just picked it up and put it back down. Let's try it take two. Alright, so we got the SEGA product license. Okay, and now we have the menu. So in the menu, I should be able to go down to NFL 2K, hit it, and then it's going to launch the game, but off of physical media instead of optical media. Excellent. Cool, let me hit the button here. Nice. Alright, so the next thing I want to try, so that other, remember how I showed there's like this little piece of thing that I made? I'll probably end up sticking this in here as well, but I want to try, so I downloaded this from a website which I'll link, where you take a couple of resistors and you bridge the 12 volt rail, which is this pin right here on the power supply, with one of the grounds. And what that should do is provide us enough resistance so that we do not have any issues with heating this thing. Now, granted, you're just going to have a couple of resistors hanging in there, which we could, you know, once we have this thing functioning and if it doesn't blow up, we can cover that up with electrical tape just to make sure that it stays in there. And also, this article says that it's good to use 3 1K ohm, 1/4 watt resistors in parallel, which basically load balances it. So what I have is a bunch of these here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build just one of these, something that looks sort of like this, where I take the resistors and I just kind of twist them together like that, and I'm going to bridge those points together. And let's see what happens. So again, the goal here is to create a array of resistors so that we don't have to mod this system or this power supply to worry about the heat problem. But I like the idea of not modding the power supply, which some people choose to do that. And if you want to do that, fine. But if I want to change this over to playing optical discs in the future, then I would either have to remod it so that the 12 volt rail is back, or I'd have to buy a separate power supply, which I just don't want to be dealing with that nonsense. All right, so I'm just twisting these resistors. It's kind of like building a web server load balancer, right? Okay, so here's what I made. Now, here's the power supply. So here is this is the 12 volt, and here is a ground pin. And I'm going to show this picture right here. Hopefully I'm not too far zoomed in. This is what we're trying to replicate here, bridging these two. So let's see how easy this is. I don't know if I have to cut these. I might have to. Okay, it feels like it's in there. Okay. Okay, so it feels like I got that in there. Okay, got my water ready in case something goes wrong. Move my paper. Well, hey, how about that? Okay, so there's the GDEMU. Let me pick NFL 2K. I mean, and it's working.
Hello and welcome to the inaugural year of the NFL on the SEGA Sports Network. I'm Clark Dishman, and for the next 25 weeks, we'll be bringing you all the action, from exhibition all the way to the Super Bowl. As we roll the calendar over to the Big 2000,
The Big
people around
2000.
the world are raising questions about what the next millennium will have in store. We also have some questions about the year 2000 and how exactly it will impact the NFL. Will the champs come back to win yet another Super Bowl? Or will they be dethroned along the way? Will it be an era of offense? Or will the crushing defense of yesteryear return? Will even more records fall? Or will some forever withstand the test of time? These are some of the questions we hope to answer along the way in a game where millions of viewers and thousands of fans watch a battlefield of 100 yards for 60 minutes, where 22 men from two teams fight for the right to one single ball.
Awesome. The NFL 2K was one of the games that I got on launch. You know, I gotta say, it always feels good whenever you do a mod that goes well. Even though this was a relatively simple mod, I'm very happy that this went as easy as it did. I'm just gonna do a couple of cleanup items, but before I did, I just wanted to show this up close with this camera. I mean, it doesn't smell like anything's burning. So I suppose time will tell whether this method works, but I've read that it should. Installation was pretty straightforward. But like I said, I'm going to add a few more bells and whistles to this over time. I may or may not document that, but this was just the main thing, and I want this to be the modded console. So I fashioned this piece of plastic when I put it in my other console, and I'm just gonna stick it back. Basically, there's a piece of plastic inside of here that I just covered in electrical tape, and what I did with it and what I'm gonna do again with it is I'm gonna stick it up front here, and you could buy some 3D printed stuff that people have already made that does the same thing, which I'm gonna do. It's just, since I've already fashioned this, I'm gonna use it until I have something else. What the intention of this is, the intent of this is so that when the I know since now that the console's black, it's kind of hard to see everything, but when the fan is sucking the air out, that the air is drawn this way. So it's pulling air from the power supply down this way and out this way to keep it cool inside. Now, I don't know. I mean, adding this bridge right here makes this irrelevant probably, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. The other thing that I'm going to do is find my electrical tape, and I'm going to just, even though I'm pretty sure that's going to hold, I don't want that to accidentally get loose and perhaps bridge something it shouldn't bridge. You know what I mean? Create a short. If it were to accidentally get loose, maybe it was handled improperly, or let's say I'm moving someday and it's in, because even though it's in there pretty good, like, I can't pull that out. Now, the way that I put that in there was, I didn't just push it in there, and I should have done a better job of showing this, but I don't want to take it out. What I did was I actually unscrewed the power supply, and I lifted the front of this up, and I stuck these, in the back area, so not where the prongs come up for the, from the main board, but behind it, if you see. So I stuck them back there, and then I pushed the prongs up from the board, and it's holding in place really well. So when I tug on that, it's not coming up. At least, I'm not going to pull on it too hard, but I don't know. I don't know what the future's going to hold. I don't know if over time it's going to wear down. So what I'm going to do is just take, a little teeny tiny piece of electrical tape and just hold it down. I'm entirely confident that this is very unnecessary, but just like with this little plastic shield that I added, and probably some eventual stuff that I'll add in the future, I'm gonna go with the better safe than sorry approach. That should keep it there, and then this little plastic piece here should pull air out this way through the fan over the power supply, and then I'll get probably a nice 3D printed insert to stick here that will hold this in place better, and also provide this protection as well. So let's see what this looks like with the top on. See right in there. So like I said, the eventual goal, I'll get like a nice, you know, cradle to stick inside there. And then what I want to do is get something to stick on the top here, so that I can stick my SD card in up top. That's going to be the next thing that I do, but I haven't ordered anything yet because I haven't really settled on what I want to do. And a lot of that stuff people just kind of make on their own, so I haven't really decided on who makes good quality stuff. All right, so let's put this thing together. I have it back in one piece, including the modem, and I want to do another smoke test with everything put back together. All right, so first good sign that we're in business. Okay. Cool. Very cool. Very cool. Very happy so far. Make sure they don't lose the game, and we're set. All right. Couple of final thoughts. So the optical desk emulator, I mean, it's cool. Obviously, getting the extender so you don't have to reach in here to swap out your SD card is optimal. But having this really cool looking all black console, it's sharp looking, it's great. It just looks perfect. This is exactly what I was going for with this project. It's a little bit of a shame that it's not going to be used for optical disc reading, but you know, my original Dreamcast will be in original condition. I'm gonna try to keep it that way as long as possible. I mean, isn't that one of the most beautiful things that you've ever seen? Anyways, thanks for sticking around, for watching this. If you enjoyed this, I hope that you did enjoy this, and if not, well, that's okay too. So, all right, thanks a lot, and bye.